Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that starts with cruelty, pride, and a reckless bet, but slowly turns into something no one expected, especially not the man who thought money made him untouchable. This story takes place in a glittering city where success was measured by suits, cars, and the size of your bank account. At the center of it all was Adrian Blackwell, a self-made millionaire in his early 30s. Adrian was famous for two things: his ruthless business instincts and his absolute lack of empathy. He believed the world was divided into winners and losers, and in his mind, money decided which side you were on. Adrian loved expensive restaurants, private clubs, and being surrounded by people who laughed at his jokes, not because they were funny, but because he paid the bills. One night, at a high-end rooftop party overlooking the city lights, Adrian sat with a group of equally wealthy friends. They drank imported whiskey, laughed loudly, and mocked people they believed were beneath them. As the conversation turned to marriage, one of his friends joked that Adrian would never marry because no woman was good enough for his standards. Adrian smirked and said marriage was just another transaction, something you did when it benefited you. Another friend laughed and said, "You talk big, Adrian, but I bet you wouldn't even dare marry someone completely opposite to your type." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Opposite how?" "Someone poor," the friend said, grinning. "Someone with no status, no looks by your standards. Someone everyone would laugh at." The group laughed, but Adrian didn't. He leaned back, confident and bored. "I'd marry anyone," he said casually, "if the price was right." That's when the bet was born. Fueled by alcohol and arrogance, one of the men slammed his glass down and said, "I bet you wouldn't marry a poor, overweight woman, someone with nothing to offer you socially. Do it, and I'll transfer you $2 million. The laughter stopped. $2 million wasn't pocket change, even for them. Adrian's eyes sparkled, not with kindness, but with challenge. $2 million, he asked, "and you have to stay married for at least 1 year, the man added. "No divorcing early." Adrian smiled. "Deal." They shook hands, and just like that, a woman's life became a game. A few days later, Adrian told his assistant to find someone suitable for the bet. Not a model, not an influencer, but someone poor, unnoticed, someone desperate enough to say yes. That's how he found Clara. Clara lived in a small, aging apartment on the edge of the city. She worked as a night cleaner at a community college, wiping down classrooms after students went home. Her paycheck barely covered rent and groceries. She had grown up being told she was too much in every way, too quiet, too emotional, too heavy. Years of insults had taught her to keep her head down and expect very little from life. Clara had dreams once. She loved painting and hoped to become an art teacher. But life didn't wait for dreams. Her mother passed away, her father disappeared, and survival became her only goal. When Adrian first met Clara, he barely looked at her face. He noticed her worn shoes, her plain clothes, and yes, her weight. In his mind, she was exactly what the bet required. He sat across from her in a cafe she had never dared enter before. All polished marble and soft music. Clara's hand shook as she held her cup of coffee. "I'll be honest," Adrian said bluntly. "I'm looking for a wife. A marriage of convenience. You'll be financially secure. In return, you'll marry me and live as my wife for 1 year. Clara blinked. Sure, she had misheard. "You want to marry me?" "Yes," he said, as if asking about the weather. "You won't have to love me. Just play the role." "Why me?" she whispered. Adrian shrugged. "Because you said yes to the meeting." The words stung, but Clara swallowed them. She thought of her overdue bills, her empty fridge, the exhaustion that never left her body. "What happens after 1 year?" she asked. "We divorce. You'll get a settlement," Adrian replied. "Enough to start over." Clara hesitated. Something about the offer felt wrong, but desperation has a way of silencing doubts. She nodded slowly. "Okay." The wedding was small, but strange. Adrian's friends attended with smirks and hidden laughter. Clara wore a simple white dress she bought secondhand. She looked nervous, but dignified, even as whispers followed her down the aisle. Adrian stood there in a tailored suit, already bored. From the very beginning, the marriage was cold. They lived in a massive house that felt like a hotel to Clara. Adrian had his wing. She had hers. They ate separately. He treated her politely but distantly, like an obligation. Adrian made rules. No touching. No questions about his work. No embarrassing him in public. Clara agreed to everything. She told herself it was temporary. But something unexpected began to happen. Clara didn't behave like Adrian's friends expected. She didn't demand expensive gifts or brag about being married to a millionaire. She volunteered at a local shelter in her free time. She cooked simple meals and left leftovers for the staff. She spoke kindly to the housekeepers and remembered their names. At first, Adrian ignored it. Then one evening, he came home late and found Clara sitting on the floor of the living room, painting. The canvas showed a quiet city street at sunset, warm and alive. Adrian stopped without realizing it. "You paint?" he asked. Clara looked up, startled. "Yes, I used to." "It's good," he said, surprising himself. "Thank you." She smiled softly. That smile stayed with him longer than he expected. Weeks passed, then months. Adrian began noticing small things. Clara never complained, even when tabloids mocked her appearance after photos of their marriage leaked online. She read cruel comments silently and closed the laptop without a word. One night, Adrian snapped. "Why don't you fight back?" he asked. "Don't you see what they're saying about you?" Clara looked at him calmly. "I've heard worse my whole life," she said. "Words only hurt if you believe them." That answer unsettled him. Slowly, without realizing it, Adrian started spending more time with her. They talked over dinner. He learned about her childhood, her dreams of teaching art, her fear of becoming invisible. And for the first time in his life, Adrian listened. One day, Adrian fell sick with a high fever. Used to assistants and nurses, he expected Clara to keep her distance. Instead, she stayed by his side all night, changing cold towels, making soup, refusing to leave. "Why are you doing this?" he muttered. "Because you're my husband," she said simply. Something cracked inside him. Months later, the year was almost over. Adrian's friends reminded him of the bet, the money waiting. They joked about the divorce party, but Adrian couldn't laugh anymore. One evening, he overheard Clara on the phone with her landlord from her old apartment. She had been quietly paying off her neighbor's overdue rent, someone she barely knew. "You don't have to do that," Adrian said later. "I know," Clara replied, "but I can." That was the moment he understood. Clara wasn't poor because she lacked value. She was poor because life had been unfair. And despite everything, she was generous, strong, and kind in ways money could never buy. The day the contract ended, Adrian sat across from her with divorce papers. His hands trembled. "You're free," he said quietly. Clara nodded, trying to smile. "Thank you for everything." As she stood to leave, Adrian spoke. "Wait," she turned. "I don't want the divorce," he said. "I married you for a bet, but I fell in love with you by accident." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Is this another joke?" she asked. "No," he said. "It's the truth." He tore the bet contract in half and transferred the $2 million back to his friend, ending the mockery forever. For the first time, Adrian chose love over pride. They stayed married, not because of money, but because they chose each other. Adrian changed his lifestyle, his friends, even his business practices. He funded art programs at community colleges, inspired by Clara. And Clara, she finally became an art teacher, standing confidently in front of classrooms, teaching students that worth isn't measured by appearances or bank accounts. The man who married her as a joke learned the hardest lesson of his life. Sometimes the biggest shock isn't what you gain from a bet, but what you discover about yourself when you finally see someone's true value. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you in the next one.